Well, a big hello to you. It's great to see you. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, what I'm going to do is show you just how easy it is to wire up for DCC a locomotive that doesn't come DCC ready. And a case in point is this J94 from Hornby. It's a locomotive that's really quite plentiful, and if I show you the box that it came in, pristine in box for £30 here. I bought this at the Warnerley show over the previous weekend to me filming this, and that really is a bargain not to be sniffed at. And this is an as new model. It really just hasn't been used, and you can see there that this is definitely something that holds its own up against some of the more new tooled J94s, and actually compared to this DJM model, which was substantially more and does come DCC ready, you can see that for those on a budget, or maybe who want a model that has a little bit less fragile detail, this is a great route to go. Any mention of soldering does tend to scare a lot of people, but what I want to show you is just how easy it can be. In this case, we can go down two routes. We can either solder in an actual DCC socket, and that would then make this locomotive fully DCC ready, and you can just plug and unplug a regular decoder without modifying it. The second route is to hardwire it, and that would involve taking something like this 8-pin decoder from Tramfabriek, cutting off the plug, and then hardwiring, actually soldering these wires to the motor and to the pickups to allow it to control the locomotive. Today's video comes in association with Tramfabriek, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double-O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com, and don't miss out on your latest logo.
The first thing, of course, with any locomotive is to ensure that it runs perfectly well on DC. If a locomotive doesn't run well on DC, then you can't expect the application of a DCC decoder to do anything towards fixing that. So, first of all, we take this to the DC test track in the rolling road, power it up, and just make sure that it runs smoothly at all speeds, that there's no issues, and if, for example, you need to adjust or clean pickups and wheels, that's the stage that this should be done. As you've just seen, this locomotive actually does run really, really well. So we're going to move on now to the DCC fitting. There's just 3 screws on the Hornby Austerity to actually undo. The first 2 of these hidden away underneath the bunker. They're just crosshead screws. Just very carefully remove those. I take them all the way out and put those to one side just so they don't go missing. And then the next screw to undo is this one that's inside the funnel moulding or chimney moulding, and you can see there these 2 like to stay together, so again I'm going to put that somewhere safe, and that frees up the entire body that just comes free in that way. And again we can put that to one side, and this is what we're working with. There's a lot of weight in this model, and you can see at first glance there doesn't seem to be anywhere to put a decoder, but actually underneath the front here we've got a lot of space, and this is ideal as a location for a decoder to fit into. The first thing I want to do here is remove this weight so that we can gain access to the wiring and the motor. There's just 2 screws, and then that lifts off. That then exposes the motor itself, and this is hardwired to the pickups on this model. Another 4 screws allow us to just loosen this up. So there's two there. The wires feed through a hole, so we'll leave that be. And I'm just going to remove these two at the back as well. On a lot of locomotives, we don't actually need to do anything like this because we can gain easy access to the motor and to the screws that hold it in. Again, all of these parts just need to make sure that we put to one side, keep them together, and the motor itself should just lever up. On this particular model, it does feel quite a tight fit, and actually it's held in place by what appears to be black tack underneath. Now I take a sharp blade, because this has been in a very long time, so it does seem to have really fallen in love with sticking to the bottom of that motor. I'm just going to clear that off. With this removed, you can see the wires that are coming from the pickups. We've got two here, and we've got two from here. They're all the same colour, but a little hint as to which goes to where is they're paired onto the contacts on the motor. We're going to gently unsolder these and keep these two pairs of wires together, and that way you won't induce any kinds of shorts. With the socket removed, you can see we've got 6 wires. If you were using an 8-pin decoder, hardwired direct, there would be 8, but each of them have the same base 6 colours. On an 8-pin decoder, you would additionally have a green wire and a blue wire. As this model has no auxiliary functions such as lights, we don't need to use any of the wires above the black, the red, the grey and the orange. Carefully separate these out. These 2 wires we will effectively discard. What I will do is I'll just seal the ends with a little bit of nail varnish. This acts as a very effective liquid insulator, and should the ends of any of these spare wires make contact with anything metal, this just ensures that no electrical connection will be made. When it comes to the other wires, we're going to need to tin these first before we move on to soldering them to the rest of the locomotive. There's a very simple mnemonic to remember which wire does what. Red and black, they go to the track. Orange and grey power the way by attaching direct to the motor. So what I'm going to do here is very carefully, using this really handy tool, I'm going to just strip a very small amount off each of the wire. Just get the insulation off. Again, the wires that we're not using, completely ignore. We've got those covered in nail varnish just to protect the ends. So with those bared, what I'm going to be using is DCC Concepts Liquid Flux and a very old paintbrush that really would have been fit only for the bin if it wasn't for the fact that it's perfect for applying some of the liquid flux. Each of the wires that I want to tin, just rub those with the dampened brush. You don't need a huge amount. And then I'm going to use the S179 Sapphire Solder, again from the DCC Concepts range. And I'm going to put a very small amount onto the end of the soldering iron. You don't need a huge amount. And you just touch the end of the wire to each of those bared wires, and that will tin them. That's all you need to do. And then the orange and grey, I am going to connect directly to the motor. Now I'm going to feed the orange back through this bracket. You'll remember that this had wires coming through to be able to gain access to the motor itself. We've still got some flux on the brush. I'm just going to put a little bit on there. There's already some solder on the terminal of the motor, so we don't really need to add any more. Just going to touch those, and we've got our connection there. Let's just make sure that that's a good connection. Yes, it is. I'm just going to work the motor back into the cradle and just make sure that these wires down here don't get caught underneath, as they'll get crushed and may sever or cause shorts. It's just simply a case of sliding these into place, gently screwing them down. And then we have the second one that goes down here at the back. The next wire we need to do is the grey. Remember, orange and grey power the way, so that's going to go to the top terminal on the motor. Still got a little bit of flux on the brush. It's very economical. A little bit on the wire, a little bit on the terminal, and then I'm just going to get a pair of tweezers just to avoid any risk of burning my fingers, and that's going to go in there, and that's secure. And then we have red and black, and these are going to connect to the two bundles of wires that we took from those motor terminals that go back to the pickups on the chassis. In order to protect these, I'm going to use some of this heat shrink, and this just covers up any of the joins and makes sure that there's no bare metal that can short out. Don't need the full length, so I'm going to use my wire cutters just to prepare two short lengths. Then we need to make sure that these are slid into place before we start to do any of the soldering. So first up, let's get a little bit more of that flux. So we're going to go black and a little bit on there. We've still got some solder on the soldering iron. It can be a little bit tricky when you're going at an angle. There we go, just hold it until the solder sets. Make sure we've got a good join, and then I'm going to slide up the heat shrink. Make sure it completely covers the joint. Once it's in place, I'm going to actually use the heat from the soldering iron, just use it a little bit further up, and this activates the heat shrink and makes it shrink to tightly fit onto the wires, and this stops it from coming off. There we are. Now we have our red wire. Again, we've got a little bit of heat shrink here, a little bit of flux on the red wire this time, and those wires from the pickup. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to use some tweezers to get in there. And just try and make sure that we've got a good join. If you need to add a small amount of solder to the iron, so I'm going to just make sure that feels secure. I'm going to pull the heat shrink back over the join and then use the heat from the soldering iron just to activate that. And now we should have ourselves a fully functional DCC decoder socket. Today's video is sponsored by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for finding all of the models featured today at the best possible price at the link in the description. TMC also offers custom weathering and renumbering to any model, be it brand new or pre-owned. Check out their full pre-owned listings too, where you can be assured of quality as every item is screened and graded by professional staff. TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for all aspects of modelling. I'm going to test this with a 6-pin decoder. In this instance, I've got one here from AE Models that I can use. Before I go any further on this build, I want to test this. So I'm going to just make sure that everything works as expected. Plug the decoder in and I can just use the entire chassis as is on my DCC decoder test track and just make sure that everything works. So on the programming track, I'm going to tell it to read the decoder, and after a moment's pause, it reads the manufacturer ID, decoder version, and then we can set up the address. Sometimes if there's a little bit of dirt on the track, you get this error. Don't worry about that. And there, it's read the long address just fine. So we're quite happy with that. We're absolutely fine. There's no weight in this, so you may find that performance is not quite as expected at this stage. But don't worry about that. Now we can start reassembling the model. For reassembly, what we've first of all got to make sure we can do is to fit this decoder down and where it will go underneath the weight. So I'm just going to bend this, and then it's simply a case of getting this carefully fitted into place. Just going to tighten these off. Just make sure that everything is tucked into place. It might take just a little bit of time, very gently working the wires in, making sure that they don't end up underneath this plate being chewed by the screws. You can see now that the decoder fits within the space, and we're just going to leave the fly lead for now. That's for a plug-in stay alive. Now at this stage you can see that this front piece is lifted just a little bit. I'm going to start to make some space for the wires to go underneath. I'm going to use a dreadnought style file, and I'm just going to start filing away and just flatten off the base of this casting. So I've worked for maybe about 30 seconds to a minute, and you can see I've just very carefully taken down some of the base of this. So let's just test fit that down and in, and it looks like we are there. So now it's just a case of securing the two screws, and again on the other side. With the top on, you can either tuck in the stay alive cable. If you're not going to use it, it just fits into this space here, and then the body can be reassembled over the top, and that should be perfectly adequate for most people. Just getting the front clipped in, and the boiler will sit down nice and low. But if you want to add a stay alive, this is the stage where we're going to try and see if we can fit one in. It's going to end up going into the cab. This is out of necessity, and I'm going to try and use one of the AE large stay alives. These just plug in. So I'm just going to get the cable. I'm going to run this up, and the plug itself will just fit nicely in this area so it doesn't impinge on the actual fitting of the boiler. Make sure you got this the correct way round, and then it should just plug into place. And I'm going to use some Captain tape just to hold all this snug so that the wires don't move whilst we're trying to put the body on. And there's a little bit of space just at the back, underneath the back head there, which is designed for wires, and that's what we're going to try and get these wires to come through. I'm going to get the chimney into place. I'm going to fix the stay alive itself to the roof of the cab, just to keep it as much out of sight as we can, with one of these 3M double-sided sticky tapes. And then we're going to just very carefully slide the cab on down and in. Just make sure that those wires don't get stuck at the front. And that's clicked into place nicely. Just make sure that this cable is not too obtrusive. And then we've got 2 further screws just to put back in underneath the back of the locomotive, and then our DCC fit and stay alive installation is complete. Now the stay alive is optional, you don't need to add this in, but I've shown you how because I was going to do it anyway, and it does really dramatically improve slow speed running of these locomotives over things like Insel Frog points. So now let's take it onto the layout and see how it gets on. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this video and more importantly found it informative. If you did, please tickle the like button and consider sharing it to show others just how easily you can DCC fit these venerable old models and make them some of the best performers on your model layout. They're available in a plethora of different colours, liveries and such like, and as you saw, at a really great knockdown price. With the addition of a stay alive, they are pretty much unstoppable, and it's a really good value for money way of adding these locomotives to your fleet. Notwithstanding that there are other new tooled variants out there, they do still hold their own, and this is a great way for the budget conscious modeler to make on, whilst prices second hand are really good for the older model. We've got a link down below that helps you find all the DCC concepts and AE models products that we use today, and it's definitely a great project to take on. Leave a comment down below, I'd love to hear from you what you've been up to on your modelling journey, and until next time, this is me, Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself, happy modelling, bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
Today's video is sponsored by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for finding all of the models featured today at the best possible price at the link in the description. TMC also offers custom weathering and renumbering to any model, be it brand new or pre-owned. Check out their full pre-owned listings too, where you can be assured of quality as every item is screened and graded by professional staff. TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for all aspects of modelling. I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.